kid who swings a golf club like a dream. I'd like to try to qualify him for the U.S. Amateurs.
Coming to Apple TV Plus.
What's your name?
I'm not into older guys, but I'm flattered.
A new comedy series, Stick.
I don't want to go on this trip.
Your mouth's saying one thing, but those eyes are saying something else.
From the home of Ted Lasso.
This is your shot at redemption? This is your mulligan?
Owen Wilson.
This game takes and it takes. The game's finally giving me something back.
Stick.
You know Arnold Palmer?
Iced tea, lemonade, mix it.
I'm missing a nap for this.
Streaming June 4th on Apple TV Plus.
Whatever the occasion, effortless elegance is right this way. Because Hilton brings you new ways to stay courtesy of the Nomad London. And it doesn't stop at award-winning dining in a space draped in velvet and illuminated by vintage chandeliers. No, this day goes beyond with unparalleled personalized service and attentive hospitality. Oh, and did we mention the Nomad London can be booked using your Hilton Honors points at Hilton.com? Hilton, for the stay.
Llegaron los nuevos McCrispy Strips, listos para aventurarse en la mezcla de mayo ketchup, la barbecue que quedó en el fondo de la cajita, hot fudge sundae y en la nueva creamy chili McCrispy Strip Dip. Los nuevos McCrispy Strips, ahora en McDonald's. Para pa pa pa.
Robertson, the first time we've seen them attack them, and there's Francis! Well, that's what I wanted to see Robertson do. And still Robertson, getting his shot in, and a goal! Robertson!
Hello, as the chapter on Forest season comes to an end, another chapter begins as we're delighted to welcome you to the first proper episode of Tricky Talks, a brand new Forest podcast. And it's no coincidence we're recording our first episode on the third anniversary of our Wembley playoff win. I'm joined first of all by Chels. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. And of course, Mollo joins us as well. How are you doing, sir?
Yeah, really good. Thank you, Simon. All good.
Good. So this episode generally is going to focus on our 2024-25 season review. But before we do that, I want to spend a few minutes on not the actual game itself, but more on the aftermath of the Chelsea loss. As we all know, the defeat meant a 7th place finish and a place in the UEFA Conference League next season. But it seemed at the time as though it was a big opportunity missed. What was your initial reaction at the time, guys? And seeing as it was Chelsea we played, we'll start with you, Chelsea.
It was one of them ones for me where I wasn't disappointed because finishing 7th, I had at the start of the season 15th, but it was more frustrating that everything went our way. That was what got me more than anything. It was just the perfect ending for us, but we just couldn't manage to do it. I mean, you could tell we were tired. It's been a long season and they've done absolutely brilliantly. So for me, not disappointed at all, but just a little bit frustrated. But I'm over it. It doesn't matter. We're in Europe and that's all that matters.
Mollo, you were there at the game, obviously. What was the atmosphere like throughout the game? The first half, I thought, was quite a reasonable display at the time, and there was hope that they'd get the result. But then the second half, just like Chelsea said, they just seemed to run out of gas, and Chelsea nicked the goal. What was the atmosphere like in the stadium at the time?
I think if you could have written a script for it, the first half went absolutely to plan and stayed on script. We dominated. We had them under the cosh. We had 1 or 2 chances in a game of very few chances. And the atmosphere was really positive, really supportive. Obviously, it died off a little bit because Chelsea managed to slow the game down. You know, the dark arts, with a lot of help from Anthony Taylor, they managed to slow it all down. And at half time, you could see everything was starting to go our way. The results were going our way. And it was that thing where who's going to come out knowing what it means to them? I'd completely forgotten that if Chelsea won, it put them in the Champions League as well. Completely forgotten with results going their way. And they came out and they started the second half strong and we struggled. Very sloppy goal. They basically did a Forest on us in the game, didn't they? And it was a desperation in the way both we played and the atmosphere in the second half. Pass of the game was by Matt Chels near the end. And if Chris Wood isn't going to put away the 1 or 2 half chances we've got, we're going to struggle. The end was really bittersweet, and it's that thing, frustration, opportunity missed, all of the above. But the whole mess of Chelsea celebrating in front of their fans for 20 minutes, everything just... A lot of people, no, not a lot of people, some people left the ground on the final whistle. I almost wished I had in the end because there was a lap of honour that was pointless, really. And, you can't be disappointed with the season, and I know we're going to come on to that. But overall, it felt like an opportunity missed, but it wasn't a surprise. If I'm being brutally honest, I thought I'd covered every base. I'd called it that being Forest and the way we do things usually, everything would end up going our way, but we wouldn't do what we needed to do. So I had money covering all those bases, except for Chelsea. I had money on Chelsea. I can say it now. Chelsea winning or a draw. I'd put money on the other results going against us to try and make sure it happened. So that happened. Everything went the wrong way. Everything went the right way except for our result. Can't knock the players though. They gave absolutely everything in that game. It wasn't through a lack of effort, a lack of quality, a lack of tactical nous or anything like that. It was just, to quote our old friend, very fine margins. If one of our chances goes in and theirs doesn't, obviously we win. But I think first goal was always going to be the big one, and so it proved.
For those that did hang around afterwards, after Chelsea completed their celebrations, they were lucky enough to see two players come out because they'd been given some really good awards. Obviously, Milenkovic got the Player of the Season, and Matt Chels was the Premier League Golden Glove winner. Well-deserved awards for both players, wasn't it, Mollo?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, not gutted, but a little bit disappointed that Matt Chels didn't win it outright and shared it with Raya, who's a terrific keeper, but he plays for Arsenal. And Milenkovic, he won the Fans Player of the Year, and I'm sure we're going to talk about that later. What's been amazing, really, you talk to lots of people, and there's so many contenders for the Player of the Year. Some years, it's like, who was the least bad? For this year, we've had so many fantastic performances. You could make a case for quite a number of players, as I'm sure we will later.
Yeah, we'll come on to our own season awards in a moment, won't we, Chelsea? But what do you think of Matt Chels and Milenkovic winning those two awards? Were there any other obvious contenders, or were you surprised that they'd got those awards?
I wasn't surprised at all, to be honest. And again, echoing what Mollo said, the whole squad, near enough. You could have picked anyone, from Nico Williams to Gibbs White to Wood. You could have picked anyone, and it must have been such slim margins again. But Milenkovic, I mean, he's came in. How he hasn't got the captain armband, yeah, I've got no idea. He just seems to control the game. He just makes everybody better, and I just think that. And obviously, he's scored goals. He defends outstandingly well. He makes Murillo better. Them two as two centre-halves. And, I mean, again, it's slightly disappointing with Chels that he had to share the award, bless him. But, not just the clean sheets with Chels, but the saves that he has made is outstanding. So if it was on clean sheets and performance, I think that Chels would have got it on his own hands down, to be fair.
And you never know, they might win some more awards shortly coming up. But let's move on to the 2024-25 season review. As I mentioned earlier, this is going to form the backbone of this particular episode. So I'd just like to read out some facts and figures to you both. So this season for Forest, you're probably aware of a lot of this already, but they won away at Liverpool for the first time in 55 years. They won away at Man United for the first time in 30 years, and to do both in the same season was incredible. They did the double over Man United and Spurs. They beat Man City for the first time in 27 years, I think. They got away wins at Spurs, Brentford and West Ham for the first time. They doubled their points tally from last season, which has never been done in Premier League history. They had a 20-goal striker who is now our all-time highest scorer in the Premier League. We had the Golden Glove winner, as I mentioned. We had a record number of away wins in a season. Nuno won multiple Manager of the Month awards. We got to the FA Cup semi-final. We did a Wembley appearance. And we had the first Forest player to be chosen for England in a long, long time. Put all of those into one mix. These types of magical seasons don't come around too often. And it's too early to tell whether this is now the norm. So in my opinion, it was important that they took advantage of all of these aforementioned facts. And I think a place in the conference is a reward for all of that. And yeah, it is tinged with a bit of disappointment, though, having got so close to the Champions League, which I think does show the overall progress that has been made by Nuno on the squad. But there is a kind of sense of disappointment that they couldn't take that last final steps. What were your final thoughts, guys, in terms of the season as a whole? Obviously, we should be celebrating the fact that we got into Europe for the first time since 1995-96. But what are your thoughts? Mollo, we'll start with you.
I think as a whole, you stand back, and Chelsea touched on it. Where did we think we'd finish this season? I thought mid-table was going to be really good progress and maybe a bit of a cup run. Clearly, we blew that out of the water. And there were times this season at points, and Brentford away was strangely probably one of those games, and one of my, if you like, favourite games, because when we were at Brentford, I had no doubt in my mind we were going to win. I had almost no doubt in my mind once we scored we were going to keep a clean sheet. And it was kind of, right, who's next? And we went through one of those spells that teams with confidence go through, where you just cannot wait for that next. Well, can't wait for who you're playing next, because you know you're going to blow them away most of the time. And I think, we stating the obvious, are we going to continue that for just a little bit longer? Or if one of those managers of the month that are coming the last month of the season for Nuno, we know where that would have taken us. And I think to sort of quote someone I heard earlier today when I was listening to something, it's okay, the start of the season, target number 1 is to stay up, target number 2 is to make progress, which we call mid-table. But those targets and your goals adjust according to what's going on around you. And we were sitting pretty in third. And I'm not being negative, but it was an amazing achievement to get to third. After 30 games, we were sitting up there in the Champions League spot, 6 points clear or whatever. And I think it got to a point that I was so used to, and I think this is across the fan base, during the season, I was so used to winning and being almost unbeatable at the back, until that horrible Bournemouth game, which we bounced back pretty incredibly from, that the disappointment in that last few games, or most of those last 8 games, especially the last 4 home games, is understandable in context. But in context of the season, having travelled to all those away games, I can absolutely promise you it's been an incredible season, as any Forest fan will say. I saw an amazing table today, a Forest satisfaction table. I don't know if you see your club satisfaction for your team's performance. And it was from very satisfied down to very unsatisfied. And Forest were top of that, joined with Newcastle, with 96% of fans very satisfied by their season. And I echo that. What was incredible, there was 0.3% very unsatisfied. So I don't know what they expected. There was other teams that were relatively... Southampton had 10% very satisfied. I was like, really? But, you know, once the dust settled on that result, it was an incredible season. And echoing what Chelsea said, it wasn't even just 11, was it? There were so many players who were superb throughout the season. Certain parts of the team functioned with different players at different times in the season, like the midfield. You know, the last 6-8 weeks of the season, Dominguez could have made a case if he had played like that all year for Player of the Year. He was incredible. Sangare turned up to the party the last few games, especially the last game. Obviously, the 2 centre-backs and 2 full-backs were pretty consistent through the season. Alanga, in the last third of the season, was our main attacking weapon in many ways. He was the guy with the assists and whatnot, as well as the goals and the pace to unsettle people. You're looking for other people to step up when someone else isn't quite at it. And right up until near the end, we had that game upon game upon game. So, all in all, just an incredible season. And I'm hoping, with Marinakis' leadership, it's going to become the norm rather than that flash in the pan like Frank Clark seasons or whatever. But an incredible season, you know, probably because I've shared it with the people I've shared it with, family and whatnot, in many ways, one of my favourite seasons ever. And that's saying something because I'm old.
So, Chels, how satisfied were you with the season? Are you in the 100% bracket, or are you at the 99.3%, or, God forbid, are you at the 0.03% of highly satisfied?
I am very, very highly satisfied. I don't know what these people wanted in the 0.03 or bracket or whatever, but yeah, for me, being 30, this season has been my best season. And to be able to live that and live it through with my dad and doing the podcast, it has just been incredible. And from where we were 2 seasons ago, fighting relegation. You go to the start of this season, I thought, are we going to be in a relegation battle again? But instead, we went to the other end of the table and were having a Europe battle instead, which was a very nice place to be. And I just think from when you look at the club as a whole, from how the players have played to how Nuno has managed the team, from getting to the FA Cup semi-final, from getting to Europe with the effort that Marinakis has put in, from the incredible support of the fans, like from watching it on telly, from hearing every single chant, new ones and old ones. I mean, the noise of Mull and Tyre, you do not hear that anywhere else. Sorry, but you don't. And there is something special about Forest. And when you're a fan, you know how special it is. And this whole season for me it's been my absolute favourite. And I have people who are not Forest fans come up to me and they go, oh yeah, well, it's just Forest's, whim of a season, and it's just an off one because, Spurs didn't do as well and Man United were having an off season. And next season, I just want to be very subtly proved wrong. In my eyes, that's what I want. So hopefully for us as Forest of the club, this is our new norm now. And hopefully, you never know, we'll be a part of the top 6.
Yeah, we'll talk about next season towards the end of the show, but now let's move on to our awards for the season, shall we? And in no particular order, and hopefully we've all prepared our nominees and our winners for each category. So we're going to start off with signing of the season. Mollo, who is your signing of the season?
Hands down, Milenkovic. It's for lots of reasons, but 12 million quid in the modern age to sign a defender who wins every header. Everything Chelsea said about him earlier is, covers it. It rings true. But on top of that, and you said he brings out the best of Murillo and the fullbacks, the organisation. When the going gets tough, he's the guy you want next to you. But also, and not to be disrespectful to Matt Sells, he's helped make Matt Sells a much better keeper because it's a lot less obvious that weakness he has because we've got a 6'5" guy heading the ball away from set pieces most of the time, rather than a keeper coming out, slapping it, punching it, whatever, or not coming out. I just think the overall effect to 12 million quid in the Premier League is insane. We've paid more for Emmanuel Dennis or whoever. It's insane. So signing of the season because of his impact. Even if we'd have paid 50 million for him, he was worth every penny. But we paid 12 million for that guy. What a bargain!
Yep. Chels, who's your signing of the season? Are you going to go somewhere else, or do you agree?
I totally agree, Mollo. I've got it written down here. Milenkovic, when he came in, again, 12 million. What an absolute bargain he is, and he is one of the best centre halves. Best centre backs in the Premier League, if not the best. The triangle of Sells, Murillo and Milenkovic, how it happens, he just made them better. You could tell. So for me, that's got to be hands down Milenkovic for me. So I'll just echo everything that Mollo said.
I'm going to make it a hat trick. I've got him down as my signing of the season as well. And I think we need to give him this award because he comes from Serbia. So he's going to come and murder you, isn't he, if he doesn't get this award? But who makes up these chants, Mollo? Where did that one come from?
There is a guy sat in A block. Some people call him Seat Man. I won't use his last name. His name's Rich, and he sits a row behind me and along a bit. At some games, he just sits there banging the seat, singing songs that he's made up. And some of them catch on, some of them don't. But yeah, he came up with that one, and I was like, I'm not sure about that one, although because of the connotations, but actually, he's got an air of real authority about him, hasn't he? Some might say menace, but I would say he's just got a calmness and authority. And do you know what I was going to say as well? He was released, apparently. I read it when we signed him. He was let go by Fiorentina because they play a high line and they think he lacks pace and blah, blah, blah. But what I'd say about him, he's tailor-made for the English football and the Premier League, isn't he? That's the other thing. And someone in our scouting team has picked that up and said, yeah, this guy's available for a snip. Probably, I remember when we signed him, I was like, he's going to have a job to knock Willy Bolly out of the side because Willy Bolly finished the season strongly. How stupid do I look now? Because what a season. Can I give a little mention? Because we signed one or two. Another surprise one that was in my thought process was Elliot Anderson. because there's a guy we signed for a lot of money and a lot of potential, one for the future. We thought he could play anywhere across the front three and the way we were being spoken to by Newcastle fans. And it turns out that he's actually a fantastic all-action midfield general who wins tackles, wins the ball, gives it, keeps the ball. His stats are incredible, apart from his shooting and assist stats, but that's his next step, isn't it? Because once he gets that right, he's an England international. But yeah, Milenkovic edged out Anderson because of that all-round impact, because he's just been incredible from the start of the season to the end as well, not just in spells, as it were.
Absolutely. Right, time for a quick break. We shall be back right after this.
USAA knows dynamic duos can save the day, like superheroes and sidekicks, or auto and home insurance. With USAA, you can bundle your auto and home and save up to 10%. Visit USAA.com/bundle.
Bundle savings are off total premium, not available in all states or in all situations. To qualify, auto policy must be active prior to property policy issue, subject to change. Restrictions apply. Membership eligibility and product restrictions apply and are subject to change. USAA means United Services Automobile Association and its affiliates, San Antonio, Texas.
Right, on to our next award then. And most improved player. Chels, who have you got down as your most improved?
Mine has to be Nico Williams for me. Not that he was a bad player anyway, because he most certainly was not. But I don't know what happened to him. I don't know how he's done it, but he just seems to have absolutely flown this season. The pace on him. I mean, he was quick anyway, but I swear he gave Elanga a run for his money at one point. He is not afraid to get stuck in at any given opportunity. And I think it was one of them things where he almost just kind of knew, if I don't step up more, I'm not going to play. That's how it felt to me. Good. But yeah, he's Nico Williams for me is definitely the most improved player in my eyes.
Yeah, I've gone for Matt Chels as my most improved player, and Mollo, you touched on it earlier in that Nikola Milenkovic has made Matt Chels a better keeper, but you've still got to keep the ball out of the net, regardless of who's playing in front of you. And some of the saves he's done this season have been absolutely tremendous. And of course, he was the joint winner of the Golden Glove. But I got to think back to the beginning of the season when they signed Carlos Miguel from Corinthians, and everybody was of the opinion, if you read social media, that maybe Matt Chels' place was going to be under pressure from this new signing. And he's never really come close, has he? Matt Chels, right from the first game, has clearly established himself as the long-term number one. And given those question marks at the end of last season and beginning of this, I think he's put them to bed now and firmly entrenched as the number one, and well-deserved too.
Yeah, I'd certainly echo that. For me, last summer, I perhaps embarrassed myself in some ways looking back, because we were talking about where we need to improve the squad for the following season, which was obviously the season we just had. And I said the number one priority needs to be a goalkeeper that dominates the area, because Chels is great with his feet and we make some good saves, but every team was scoring from set pieces left, right and centre, conceding headers left, right and centre. And I was firmly in there, we need a stronger keeper. But that's been blown out of the water. And as you say, it's almost like with any other player, in any other position, you play to their strengths, don't you? And someone, and I presume it's Nuno, has said, right, Matt Chels is 90% of an absolutely immense keeper. And he'll know his stuff because he was a keeper. The one thing he struggles on a bit is crosses into the area outside of the 6-yard box. He never leaves his 6-yard box to come for the ball in the air. Let's solve that by going out and signing a monster of a centre-half and see what we get there. And what that's done, the confidence in Chels. I mean, some of his saves have been like physics defying. Do you know what I mean? You're like, wow. And it's kind of, you see the one-on-ones that he comes out and blocks sometimes. The number of points he saved us. A lot of people voted for him Player of the Year because they say without him, he wouldn't have been in the top half. And that's some accolade. Cloughy used to say, signing Peter Shilton saved 10 points a season. You can certainly say the same for Matty Chels this year. He's been in, and I had to publicly apologise on a different podcast for what I said last summer. I wasn't being horrible or anything. I just hope and pray that confidence he's now got seeps through for the next couple of seasons, and the goalkeeper situation is completely put to bed for the next couple of years. Because the other thing he's done that we haven't had for a little while, the guy, when it gets to penalty shootout, you know you're going to win it with him in goal. You know he's going to save one or two. Away at Brighton, when he saved two, didn't he? And it was just, you just knew it was going to happen as well. The guy is a phenomenon. He could go on. If he can do this for the next 4 or 5 years because of the age he is, he could go on to be one of the Forest great goalkeepers. And we've got a real good Hall of Fame of goalkeepers, as you'll know. So Matty Chels definitely most improved for me.
Hold that thought around penalty shootouts because it brings us nicely to our moment of the season. And I'm going to kick off here because my favourite moment of the season was not a Matt Chels penalty save, but a Ryan Yates winning penalty goal in that shootout versus Brighton to reach Wembley. I know you were there, Mollo, with Ellie, and I know there's a story about a scarf in there somewhere, but my favourite moment of the season was reaching Wembley for a second time in more recent times. What was your favourite moment of the season, Mollo? And there's been plenty of them for you.
Yeah, that was definitely up there, the Ryan Yates moment. I think Matty Chels using my scarf in his interview, and then it appeared in the Forest changing room with Morgan Gibbs-White. If anyone knows Morgan Gibbs-White, I still haven't got the scarf back, but if he does leave, then I want it back. If he stays, he can keep it. But for me, and this is perhaps an age thing, and it's an I was there moment. It's two moments in one game. Callum Hudson-Oddoi's goal at Liverpool, when we'd held out for 0-0 for so long, and then suddenly we took the lead. And that was early on in the season before we knew just how good we were, if that makes sense. And it was kind of season defining in itself. When we scored, the explosion of everything. And the joke was, the people we were with were saying, after 89 minutes and we're 1-0 up, I'd still take a draw because we never win at Anfield. And then when the final whistle went to Anfield, it was not too dissimilar on a miniature version because of numbers of the final whistle in the playoff final. It was just an explosion of relief, joy, pride, everything. And, I'm that old, and yet I've never quite I'm not old enough to have been alive when we won at Anfield previously. So it was absolutely brilliant. And the whole day was wonderful. But sorry to pick two, but in the same game, the goal and then the final whistle that day, just picked the Ryan Yates moment for me, just.
Yeah, I echo similar thoughts. I wasn't there at Anfield, but I was watching it on TV. Won't say how, but when the final whistle went, I had this big grin on my face, and I said to Danny, "Look, not even I have seen this before." And you know how old I am, Danny, and I couldn't believe it because obviously him being only 13 at the time. They haven't even played Liverpool that many times, never mind beating them. So to share that moment with him was something special. Talking of which, Chelsea, are you going to go for something different as your moment of the season?
I promise that I'm not copying Mollo in any way. But for me, it was beating Liverpool 1-0 at Anfield. I could not believe, and I am just going to say that again, that we beat Liverpool 1-0 at Anfield. I am just going to say that slowly and clearly so everyone knows. But that was the moment for me where I was absolutely speechless after the game, and I realised, like how Mollo said before, how good we are. For me, that no flukiness about it, nothing. We played well, our performance was fantastic, and we deserved to win that game. And that is how good we are, and by far my moment of the season.
See, I have that one down as our best away performance of the season. That was my one that I'd put down for that. So it's a nice segue into that category. So that's covered that one. And what about you guys? Is there anything different in terms of your best away performance of the season, or are you sticking with that one, Chels?
Yeah, I'm sticking with that one again. Oh, I love that. I want to just keep rewatching it, just the whole game. I know what's going to happen, but... Yeah,
what about you, Mollo? Anything else to supersede that?
Slightly different in that I know calibre of opposition, but for me, the Brentford away performance, because of the way I'd never... Yeah, bear in mind, at that point in time, Brentford had scored the most goals at home, had the best home record, had not lost, and I think they'd only drawn once at home. And yet I never had any doubt we were going to win, and they never looked like scoring against us. I think in context, it was on a par with Liverpool for me. I was very close to choosing the Liverpool game, I'm not going to lie, but it's kind of that... It was a few weeks later, and by then I was believing, and it was almost, in fact, there's no two ways, it was a perfect away performance, wasn't it? 0 chances for them, 2 lovely taken goals for us, 3 points, thank you very much. On to the next one. Liverpool felt more like a cup tie, if that makes sense, whereas the Brentford one was a superb league performance away in the league. So for me, I'm going to go Brentford, which is slightly left field, I know.
What about best home performance of the season? Where are you guys going with this one? For me, it was an obvious one considering the game before, but tell me where you're going with their best performance of the season at home, Mollo.
Full. Again, context. There's lots of good ones in the middle of the season. Shame there wasn't one near the end, but there we go. And Man City was definitely in the thinking, the way we beat Man City and what it meant. But you can't look behind losing 5-0 away and then beating Brighton 7-0 at home. It was the perfect performance. You know, if anything, it was the game where if you break it down, and I know people can criticise the way Brighton set up and all this. If you break it down, it was Nuno's plan in almost perfection. We had 40% possession. We had about 8 or 9 shots or chances or whatever it was. And what it also was Morgan Gibbs-White's finest moment. He was only on for 80 minutes when then obviously we rested him, but he absolutely destroyed Brighton. And so did Danilo coming back from injury. And it's the kind of game that you look at Morgan Gibbs-White and think to yourself, wow, you know, there's no limit to what he could achieve if he can perform like that with more consistency, because he's nearly always finds 10, 15 minutes in the game where he'll destroy the opposition. And if he does do it for 15 minutes, we win the game. Like Old Trafford, he turned it on for 15 minutes before half time and he won the game for us. And then for the rest of the game, he's still good, obviously, but he's good like a normal player rather than an unbelievably talented player. And against Brighton, he just pulled the strings, ripped them apart, and we just tore them a new one, didn't we? And 7-0 at home against a very good Brighton side. I think they finished 8th or 9th in the end, if I remember rightly. So it's hard to look beyond that for the home performance for me.
Yeah, very good Brighton side that didn't play with the midfield that day, I seem to recall. And it was our biggest league win for 34 years, I saw today. So wow. That certainly gets my best performance at home this season. What about you, Chels? Hat-trick?
Absolute hat-trick for me. You can't knock that game, especially after the defeat that we had the game before you go in. I went into that game going, oh, God, oh, no, what's going to happen? And then to just bang out 7 goals, me and Dad were going, another one. You just expected them just to keep coming in. And that was, hat-trick all the way for me.
And I'm sure I cheered the 7th goal louder than any of the others because it was just that last one from Jota just seemed to be taking the result into an arena that we'd not even visited for a long while, scoring 7 at home. And I do remember cheering that goal more loudly than any of the others, even though it was Jota. Nothing against Jota. But... Right, anyway, moving on, talking of goals. What is your favourite goal this season? And there have been many good goals. I'll kick off on this one, not literally, but I'll start. So my favourite goal was a Chris Wood goal at Everton. I think it was a typical Forest goal, especially early in the season when teams weren't necessarily adapting to the Forest style of play, and it was a classic counter-attack. Culminating in a 1-2 with Alanga, I think it was, who actually headed it across the goal to Wood, who lobbed the keeper, and that was simple but very effective, and for that reason it was my favourite goal of the season. Many to choose from, of course. Chels, what's your favourite?
I think mine was Alanga's goal at Man United for me. I think, did that come off a Ryan Yates header, I think? Mm-hmm. And, it was in his own half. And it's like I knew he was going to score as soon as he got the ball. He just ran through. And I think he ended up railroading 3 of their players to get through. There was nothing stopping him. No one was touching him. And I just think to be able to run from your own half all the way through. And he was just like the Flash running through there. So that's my goal for me.
Yeah, the reason I like that one as well is because it's not very often you get an assist in FPL with a header from within your own box.
Yeah. Definitely.
That's how good it was. I mean, it's very rare for Ryan Yates to get an assist in FPL anyway, but to get one in your own box was tremendous. Mollo, what's your favourite goal?
Mine's a little bit left field because of what came out of it as well. It's when we destroyed West Ham at home, and it's the Ola Aina. He scores a screamer after he's drank Ribena. I think when he scored that goal, it was an amazing volley with his left foot from there, unstoppable. But also the fact that it finally got him his own chant that was a good bit of humour with the chant. and it fits him perfectly because he's such a character. You know, everybody loves Ola Aina, don't they? Everybody's mum loves Ola Aina. Everybody's wife and girlfriend loves Ola Aina. He's just that guy, isn't he? That you'd want to invite him to your party. And for him to score that goal and then get a song to go with it, almost, it was perfect. And I just think it was great. And yeah, as you say, a choice of very many. Both the goals you mentioned, I loved. The Leicester one that Chris Wood scored at their place was another. Just so many on there. Dare I say, one of the goals at Ipswich away I really liked as well, when Alanga, all his own work, when he played like prime Stan Collymore that day, didn't he? It was amazing. But yeah, Ola Aina against West Ham.
Did Seatman create this Ola Aina chant as well, by any chance?
No, I don't think so. I forget where it was, but I think it was at Wolves away. Was the next game, I think. But I think it started. I think Wolves away in the concourse. It was one of them, and it just grew from that. Because he was interviewed drinking Ribena, wasn't he? At that point, and it just all came together. So, but yeah, and it was just caught on, and I think it's so wholesome as well, which is Ola Aina all over.
Yeah, right. We're moving on. So we've got 3 categories which we're going to aim at you, Mollo, specifically because you've been watching Forest home and away all season, obviously more so than Chelsea and I. But first of all, what was your favourite away ground this season?
Favourite away ground is nearly always the same one at the moment. Villa Park. Proper old school ground, very, very similar to the City ground, other than it's obviously got big stands on all 4 sides. Good atmosphere, proper ground, can't knock it. Good view from the away end. Really like it. You know, I'll take that Villa Park over any of these new soulless bowls and NFL grounds in London and whatnot, rather than football grounds, as it were. And so I have to give Villa Park credit. It's always been a good ground, to be fair, but they've modernised it as time's gone on, and it's still got a feel of a proper old school football ground, and it's quite big. So fair play. And it's in the Midlands.
Yeah, okay. Best away fans at the world famous City ground. Another one for you, Mollo.
This is a hard one, and I took a long time thinking about this. And what I did, rightly or wrongly, I kind of took into account all 3 seasons a little bit that we've been there. And this is probably a surprise to people who don't go to games because they're the worst home fans going. And it's Man United fans away from home. They're very noisy, very vibrant, and get behind their team, even though they're absolutely garbage this year, and they would never really look like they're in the game. So I hate giving Man United any credit, but fair play. Their away support is very, very good, to be fair. So
yeah,
credit where it's due.
They did sing that. They did sing that Amarin song, didn't they, for absolutely ages for the game they played this season, didn't they? And it's you can't help but catch on to it as well. It's like
it's in your head.
It is, yeah. What about the other end of the spectrum, Mollo? Worst away fans at the world famous City ground?
That's another one that was quite tricky. So I had to think it through. To be fair, a lot of it comes down to how Forest played on the day, because some teams we've been all over, and the fans are just sort of horrible. But I'm probably going to go with Liverpool fans. Even though they end up getting their draw that stopped them losing the league, they just, I don't know, from what they used to be years ago, all their passion and noise and everything else, they're just dull. They just don't sing. They don't get behind their team. When we went away there, the fans at the ground are perfectly, okay. Not like the old days where you're a bit nervous going to Liverpool, but they're just not very noisy. Considering how good they are and what they're playing for, you'd think they'd be proper behind their team for every minute of every game, wouldn't you? But they're far, far from it away from home.
Yeah, I just want to give a shout out to the Ipswich Town fans, actually, because when I watch the game against them at the City ground, it's not often I actually get seats near to the away fans, but I did for that particular game, and I thought they were, even though they were at the bottom of the league at the time, they showed a tremendous level of support and were cheering their team throughout the whole of the game and didn't stop roaring them on. And I thought that was, given their league position at the time, I thought they deserve a lot of credit. And I was actually talking to a few of them a month or two after that, and they thought the same about Forest fans, actually, as a home crowd. They thought Forest were the best home fans that they'd seen at that point of the season. So it works both ways. So mutual respect all around, I think.
So no, I hope they make a quick return, because it's a crack. I mean, especially for you, it's a really. I don't think I've ever been to an away ground in the away end, sat on an upper tier on the halfway line with like what would be prime seats for 60, 70 quid normally for an away game where away tickets are 30 quid. And I do like Portman Road. It's very, very similar to the City Ground in many ways. And it's a good place to visit.
I nearly sat near you actually for that game because I'd got, obviously tickets for away games are like absolute gold dust, and Ipswich away was the only away game I got to this season, and I managed to get tickets in the Forest End, and I was aware that they were on the front row of the away section, and when we got into the stand, the front row were covered in this tarpaulin all the way along, except about a dozen seats on the halfway line. So we were directed to that area. So I would have been sat in front of you, but then a steward came and said, "No, you're back at the other end." So we were at the very other end of the away fans on the front row. But anyway,
no, it's a good away end, to be fair.
Right, time for another break. We shall be back with you very shortly.
After Zoomies at the dog park, it's time for Drive Up at Target. In goes a big bag of kibble and one squeaky chicken toy for the good boy. Drive Up that's ready when you are, only in the Target app. Just tap Target.
Right, on to another award now, Unsung.
I've gone for Dominguez, for me. I've always loved Dominguez. I know people they haven't slated him, but they haven't been, overly keen on him. For me, I remember I don't know if it was the beginning of this season or last season, they done on the Forest Instagram like his touch map, and he's everywhere, absolutely everywhere. He is tireless, and when you've got him in midfield, we don't seem overrun. And I have noticed when we're not overrun, it's because he's playing. And I just think he is, the energy that he has, he never wants to come off. You can tell, even if they bring him off like after 70, 80 minutes, you can tell he just doesn't want to. For me, he is without a doubt the unsung hero, because I don't think he gets spoken about enough, to be honest, for what he does. I think because he goes in, he just does his job, and then he goes home. Is that kind of player. And what he does and making us not overrun, he's by far the unsung hero for me.
Yeah, good choice. I'm going for Nico Williams. I think at the beginning of the season, his place was under threat from Alex Moreno. But once Nico Williams got in the team, he remained there for the rest of the season. And he doesn't necessarily get the recognition he deserves. I know last season he got Player of the Month, didn't he? 3 months in a row towards the end of the season, and he's not had the same recognition this year, but his performances have been consistent week in, week out, and you can tell he actually cares, and he gives 100% every single week. So that's the reason Nico Williams is my unsung hero. You're going to wrap us up on this one, Mollo? Who's yours?
Funnily enough, the two I'd written down when I was writing it were Dominguez and Williams, but I went for Williams purely because when he wasn't in the side, you never heard a peep out of him complaining. You never saw him on Instagram saying, I don't know when I'm going to get picked. I don't know why I'm on the bench, as Dominguez did earlier in the season. Well, I agree with everything Dominguez says, everything Chelsea said about Dominguez. He does a job anywhere across the midfield, and he's a very, very good player, and he's where the ball is, he's where he's needed. But what's remarkable about Williams, really, he got those Player of the Month awards last year, and he finished fourth in our Player of the Year awards last year, but as a right back. And this year, he's earned his way back into the side, and he got there whilst he was playing for Wales at left back, and then he got in, didn't he? And he's not looked back. And I can't think of a single winger outside of Bournemouth that's got the better of him over the period of a game, where you'd say, oh, he lost that battle. He was outstanding. He was even outstanding at the weekend, wasn't he? And against Madueke and whatnot, and whoever else they put on that side of the pitch. So, yeah, I'd agree. Williams, unsung hero. And the thing is, what he might sometimes lack in because of his left foot and his crossing and whatnot, he's kind of become a bit of a talisman with putting in a big tackle when it's needed, putting in a block when it's needed. And what I like about him as well, this is a bit of an old school thing, I like it when my fullbacks can head a ball. I don't know that's ironic after Sunday, but he's very strong on the back post in the air. He doesn't very often lose, a header. Whereas other fullbacks that are good, like the young lad at Bournemouth, who's a terrific left back, they get beat in the air a lot because of their stature. Whereas Nico Williams, if we had injuries, he could do a job briefly at centre-back for 20 minutes if he had to, kind of thing, and as well. So Nico for me, because he's recreated himself in a new position as well. So unsung hero for me.
Excellent. Right, on to our final two awards, and these are the two biggies, of course. We're going to start with Young Player of the Season. Chels, who's your Young Player of the Season for 2024-2025?
Well, his name's Murillo, and he plays in red and white for me. He's, 22 years old. You cannot, as a 22-year-old youngster, just perform like how he does. It's absolutely ridiculous. His clearances that he's had off the line, even if a threat comes in, you just know he's going to handle it every time. You just, as a Forest fan, you don't worry as much when he's playing. You just don't. And yeah, did he get called up to the Brazilian team as well? Yeah, without a doubt. Anyway, he charges like an absolute ball, and for me, he's probably been one of our most consistent players as well. And yeah, for his Young Player Award, 22 years old, and I cannot remember how much we bought him for. Does anyone know? I can't.
No, not off the top of my head. 12 million, wasn't it?
There you go.
It was 15 million euros or something.
Him and Milenkovic as two centre-backs together. It's just, yeah.
And he's a warrior as well, isn't he? Because West Ham away, I don't know whether you've watched the coverage, Mollo, when obviously you were there at the time, but he was stretched off on a cart, on a golf buggy, doing this, the substitute motion, as soon as he went down, and we were all thinking, right, that'll be Morato on then. And then as soon as the second half comes out, off he trots, carries on as if nothing had happened. And that just typifies Murillo, doesn't it?
Yeah. Without a doubt, yeah, definitely Young Player for me.
Yeah,
there is a bit of a steward's inquiry as to whether he's actually a robot or not, and they just replaced the broken part.
Go on then, who's yours, Mollo? Your Young Player of the Season.
My Young Player, I'm old school, so I've gone for somebody 21 or under at the start of the season, and mine is Elliot Anderson. The scary thing about Elliot Anderson is there's still a lot more to come. I think he's been consistently. He's what we've missed in midfield sometimes. He gets the ball back and he can receive the ball under pressure anywhere. He's got more dribbles in midfield than any other player in the league of his age. In fact, in the league, actually, as a midfield player. He beats players. He does everything. I'd argue in the middle third of the pitch, he's possibly one of the best in the Premier League at what he does at the moment. Obviously, the next step is what he's going to do in the attacking third, because 2 goals and 6 assists, having took a lot of set pieces early in the season. That's his next step, isn't it? And being a bit of a stato, I couldn't help but look it up. He's had 40 shots at goal in 37 appearances, and only 7 of them have been on target. So that's clearly something that we're looking at. And the other thing I'd say, and he did it on Sunday, to be fair, I want him to be so dominant, like he has been, that he doesn't keep being the fall guy that gets taken off. Because he's averaged 75 minutes a game this season, which I know that's kind of quite common these days, and the work rate he puts in and the tackles he wins. Plus, he's sometimes on a booking because he's competitive. But for me, a guy that came in that we didn't really know what he was going to be, that we weren't even sure why we signed him at the time. It was kind of, is he one for the future? We were told he plays out wide or anywhere across the front three. I think he obviously suffered at Newcastle, being a hometown boy. Be a youngster, you often drop your youngsters in out wide as you bed them in, don't you? And see, they had a very established, strong midfield, but I wouldn't swap him for any young midfielder in the country right now, because I think there's so much more to come still. He's an all-action midfielder already, but I think the quality he's got, his feet, the way he gets out of trouble, receives the ball in trouble, no problem. Once he gets that little bit of composure and that final ball in the final third and gets his shooting sort of lined up a bit better, so to speak, hits the target more often, he'll be an England player without a doubt if he stays fit, touch wood. So, Anderson for me.
You talked about him taking the next step in an attacking sense, and I do wonder if Morgan Gibbs-White departs over the summer, then that will give Anderson the opportunity to do exactly that.
Yeah.
Depending on who else we sign, of course. I do wonder whether that's the path forward for Elliot Anderson, but we'll come on to next season in a moment. My Young Player of the Season, you went for an under-21, Mollo. Chelsea, you went for a 22-year-old. I'm going to go for a 23-year-old, and that is Anthony Elanga. I think he has just been absolutely amazing this season. Him and Hudson-Odoi especially are the focal points of how they play from an attacking sense. And he obviously had that goal against Man United, and he's certainly rammed his performances down United's throats, really, hasn't he, with the way he's performed this season. And they must regret selling him now. So that's why Alanga and there's more to come from him, I'm sure, given the fact that he's so young. Which leads us nicely on to our final award for the 2024-25 season. Who is our player of the season? We'll start with you, Chels. Who are you going for?
I'd have to say Chels for me. I just cannot. The thing is, saving a goal and scoring a goal, to me, they're both equivalent as each other. And for not just his clean sheet, but for the saves that he has made, I just don't. When we had like Matt Turner, you just feared the ball coming anywhere near him. You did. I was just going, I can't watch the telly. And whereas with Sel, I just think, he's got it. He's got it. Don't worry about it. It's totally fine. And he is. Yeah, without a doubt for me.
Okay, I'm going to go for the other end of the pitch. I'm going to go for Chris Wood. I think to get 20 goals in a season in a Premier League team is not an easy thing to do. And for him to do it this season, particularly when he was first signed, we weren't sure about the signing in general. And you can now, he certainly demonstrated his quality this season with 20 goals in the Premier League. He tailed off towards the end, but I can't tell you how valuable those 20 goals were. And they're partly the reason why Forest finished where they did, or why they were up at the upper echelons of the table for most of the season. So Chris Wood, I couldn't give it to Milenkovic because he got the signing of the season earlier and I didn't want him to be too greedy. So I went for Chris Wood. But last but not least, Mollo, who is your player of the season?
I think before I do, I've just got to say I can see a bit of the strikers' union going on there, Simon, with you. I mean, Chris Wood getting it for the former centre forward yourself. No,
yeah,
I can't argue what either of you said, but I also can't look beyond Milenkovic because we've gone from 17th to 7th, from fighting relegation to fighting for the Champions League for most of the season. And the only significant change as an individual, obviously I've mentioned Anderson as one part of that, but is Milenkovic at the back. We've gone from conceding goals willy-nilly from all over the shop, from corners and free kicks especially, to not conceding them hardly at all up until quite recently. And I think it's not only has he been bringing out that around the best of the players around him, he's a fantastic defender. You wouldn't want to play against him. And what tips it for me, finally, because the two you've mentioned were the two that I was thinking of when I was trying to figure it out. But the tipping point was the guy as a centre-back has scored 5 goals as well. And 5 goals from a centre-back. It's more than any of our midfielders, isn't it, other than the wide men. And for me, Milenkovic gets it in a really, really tough field as well, which says a lot about our season. So Milenkovic, who scored 5 and stopped about 500.
Yeah. So we started with Milenkovic, we end with Milenkovic, and that brings us to, I want to look ahead very quickly to next season because I know we're conscious of time. Starting off with new kit rumours, there's a kit doing the rounds on social media that is rumoured to be the new kit, which is a combination of the collar and the retro style kit going back to the early 90s. I personally like it. Have you guys first of all seen it, and what do you think?
Yeah, I've seen it. I love it.
Yeah, Chels.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. I love retro.
Yeah. Apparently the away kit is a nod to Nottingham Lace as well, I believe, or if rumours are to be believed. Sponsorship deals, a bit of an exclusive here, which I've shared with you previously. Obviously, due to certain regulations, looks like Forest will be needing to have new sponsors next season. And I have it on good authority that they are seeking £12 million per annum for their front of shirt sponsor, with £4 million per annum for a sleeve badge and £3 million sponsorship deal for the training wear. And the reason I know this is because they have been in touch with a luxury cruise line company who my mate Lee worked for, and he shared the email with me. Now, we've talked about signings very quickly. Both of you, where do you think Forest need to strengthen next season?
I think an awful lot depends on what we lose. I've got a feeling if we do lose Morgan Gibbs-White, which I really hope we don't, because we've kind of built the team around him, I think Nuno will change his approach slightly to having a midfield three, so we don't get overrun. Because as Chelsea mentioned earlier, we don't get overrun in midfield when Dominguez plays, and to get Dominguez in there, he's had him playing kind of off the right-hand side. So I wouldn't be surprised if he changes to a 4-3-3, especially if Sangare stays and performs like he did on Sunday for a whole game on a regular basis. So it's what we lose is what we need to replace, obviously. But also, I think it's shown we need the same quality coming on the pitch when we're trying to chase a game or whatever it is we're trying to do. With all due respect to the players that have come on, and Jota's not a winger, let's be fair. Jota's a number 10. He looked really good at Villa when he played there. But when Hudson-Odoi or Alanga come off, we haven't had the like-for-like replacement. Ramon Sosa is a talented young man who looks like he might not be with us next year, but he certainly was a step down for this season anyway. I think we need something like that. I'd like to see us sign maybe someone like a Kyle Walker-Peters who's available on a free because he can play both sides, and he's very, very similar sort of player to Ola Aina in the way he plays. It's a tough one because we're not. If we keep our centre backs, we're not going to be improving our two centre backs. That's almost a given. But we need maybe Morato to step up a bit because he wasn't quite as effective in the last part of the season as he was earlier on. Or we need to sign someone. Having said everything I've said about Nico Williams, who I think's had a brilliant season, if we do go 4-3-3, we're going to need that balance on the left, which is probably going to need a left-footed left back flying down the wing on the outside of the midfielders. Clearly, we need one, if not two, centre forwards, and that's no easy task to back up Chris Wood. I still think Chris Wood will be just as effective next year, though, because he looks fit and healthy. You know, there was nobody to bring on Sunday, and he just powered on through the full game, didn't he? But yeah, all over the pitch, really. Anything that's going to strengthen us. Depends how much money we've got to spend. And hopefully, a few of those European games, we'll be able to play squad players like we did in the Cup and still get the job done. So we can all have a great week in Leipzig this time next year.
Yeah. Mollo mentioned centre forwards there, Chelsea. It's been reported in the media today that Liam Delap is going to be signing for Chelsea, unfortunately, so he won't be one of those signings. But where do you see Forest looking to strengthen? I certainly would go for another striker to support Wood, but what are your thoughts on that?
Definitely another striker, and obviously with what's happened with Taiwo Oni as well. I can't see him staying, because of just what's happened to him, just not getting game time, bless him. But yeah, I mean, someone like Mamouche would be great, or or Wissa or something like that to help us as a striker. But I also agree with Mollo about more midfield as well, just to strengthen that. But it's not that we're bad, but I just feel like sometimes we can get a bit overrun there. So yeah, they're the two for me.
Okay, sounds good. Right, we'll talk more about signings as and when they are made throughout the off-season and when we record. But for now, before we depart, guys, any other business, Chels? Anything you want to raise? No? Okay.
No,
Mollo, what about you? Anything you want to bring up before we close?
A big shout out to Nottingham Forest community, the youth and community, who I was turned up last night to do the wellbeing walk at the club. And it was fantastic. You had loads of people there. Thankfully, it was sunny. Did a 5K walk from the ground and then back to the ground. And the last part of the walk, and this is one of the reasons I wanted to be part of it, I suppose, because I'm just a child at heart when it comes to Nottingham Forest. We did a lap of the pitch to finish off with. So I got some good photos, as I know you've seen. And then back into one of the lounges for a quick drink, cold drink. And things like that get overlooked, and they gave out a really good brochure about what the youth and community have been doing, Nottingham Forest community, and they do so much good work in and around the city. I know what really matters to us is what's on that first team pitch, but it should be noted we've got a real club to be proud of outside of that as well. With the women have had a fantastic season, the community stuff's been brilliant, and we're in Europe, so that's my AOB.
I think there is something you want to bring up, isn't there, Chels?
Yeah, there is. Yeah, no, I just wanted to mention I help volunteer alongside Mollo's lovely daughter, Ellie, who is the founder of Garibaldi Girls, the women's fan base for Forest. So if anyone wants to become a member at all, then all you've got to do is just go over to our Instagram, link is in there, and just come and become a member and go from there with us.
Awesome. Right. I think that brings episode 1 of the Tricky Talks podcast to a close. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We love it if you could give us a rating and a review on your podcast catcher of choice, and that will help us reach more Forest fans. In the meantime, we shall be back with episode 2 very soon.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Memorial Day deals are here at Lowe's. Get up to 40% off select major appliances, including Samsung. Plus, save an extra $50 on every $500 you spend on select major appliances $396 or more, like the Samsung Bespoke French Door Refrigerator featuring beverage center and dual ice maker. Shop at Lowe's today. We help. You save. Valid 5/15 through 6/18. Selection varies by location. Total savings varies based on purchase amount. See Lowe's.com for details.